resignation at the top of the charity. The resignations came after the society. I told you about inclusive. I told you this is one of the great stories of our time. You know, this is, if it's wokeism or inclusivity or transgender, it's all the same. You know, racism, homophobia, all of it is people who are different. How do we treat each other? And it's just such a massive subject. And here's another example of it. The resignations came after the society asked QC, oh blimey, to investigate complaints against Isha Kiyama Zuri, who vice chairs the organisation, who had, quote, allegedly exhibited racist, discriminatory and offensive behaviour on social media. And this is the problem. Once you get into that, I'm not going to say left wing, but once you get into that zone where you're looking for isms everywhere, you're going to find them. If you know, I'm sure you could find offence at least 30 things I've probably said today if you really wanted to, but nobody can be bothered, to be honest. It's like the COVID thing, you know. But when you get in something like this, you know, it's like who can out woke each other, if that's even a thing. So the QC, Ijoma Omambala, was also asked to look at allegations that Rob Masters, the society chairman, had, quote, enabled and or supported Zuri's behaviour. So I haven't read the whole of this report, but I bet you we don't find out what they said. So I hope so. In her report, Amambala concluded that the content in 2 posts made by Zuri, who identifies as non-gendered, you see, was unprofessional and inappropriate. So I wonder whether this was I don't know what it was. The vast majority of complaints made against Isha Kiyama Zuri have not been upheld. According to the charity, the lawyer made no findings against Masters. It has emerged, however, that Zuri and Masters, along with 3 other trustees, have resigned. Zuri, 25, lives in Nottingham and uses the pronouns they and them. Zuri has claimed to be a loudmouth believer of fighting for what is right by any means and a lover of vegan food. In an article this year, Zuri said a white man coined the term veganism, but that it had been built on the backs of black, indigenous and non-Western ancestral traditions. And so it goes on and on and on. I did find it very, I mean, speaking of veganism, etc., etc., there was a quote today about, I saw this quote, and it was obviously someone very involved in the meat industry saying, must tax meat. After I was thinking, blimey. And I found out he was the owner film studios in Hertfordshire, Blackstone, which is a giant private equity firm, and Hudson Pacific Properties, a Los Angeles-based owner of film and television production facilities, plan to launch a centre for film, TV and digital production in Broxbourne in Hertfordshire. That's just sort of north of the M25 near the A1. To take on the likes of Warner Brothers, the £700 million investment is expected to create 4,500 jobs. The site will be about 15 miles east of Warner Brothers Studios in Leavesden, home to the Harry Potter series. How about that? And also, a guy who ran it was another one of those examples of a giant company that kind of owns the world that we've never heard of. Scholastic. Have you heard of them? You've heard of Scholastic. What do they do? Books. Yes, very good. I didn't know that. Scholastic, apparently, worth 1.2 billion. So the man that's run it, who's 82, has left everything in his will to his now wife, who's 52, and has completely cancelled anything at all to his brothers, his sisters, his children, or his first wife. I think a court case might be in the offing here, don't you? I mean, honestly, why would you do that? Seriously, you're gonna just, you feel like you're gonna, you get the last laugh or something when that happens. So that's what's happening there. That's, if you want to go to La La Land, head to Hertfordshire, is the headline there. And have you noticed as well, it's one of those sort of strange things that you sort of notice it and you don't want to comment it. And the beauty of being able to do a show like this is that you can just sort of, anything that comes into your head during the week, you can just go, I think I mentioned that. Does anyone else think that? Is it me? It's on the line, as I say, Terry Wogan's memoirs were called Is It Me? And I thought that was brilliant. Is it me or when you watch a film now, the number of production companies that are involved in making it, I counted 5 the other day, and the first, I don't know, 3 minutes of a film now, 4 minutes, is taken up with the names of all the different production companies and their clever little logos, with toilets that come alive and vast sunsets that suddenly turn into the words B-O-N or so. It's just, how many do you need to make? Why do we need so many? What's the record? I've got to 5. I wonder how many you've got. What else can I tell you? A bridge has been made out of ink. Concrete ink. Venice has another landmark to sit alongside its Gothic treasures. A footbridge made by a robotic 3D printer using a new type of concrete ink. A structure called striatus is formed by several large pieces. Each was created by a robot which squeezed a specially formulated concrete through a nozzle. Is that Venice in Italy? I think it is. And the other thing I was going to say was, you see a story and you go, oh, that's a brilliant story, and then you can't find it again. Oh, that's right, yeah. So Lords has banned alcohol, people bringing alcohol in. One of the beauties of going to cricket is that you can drink most of the day and sing, and no one really minds. And what's brilliant about cricket is that it is the particularly, and Lords is just a bit stuffy, because all the people wearing their bacon and egg ties, and some have the bacon and egg. It's the orange and red. You see the striped blazers, and you see, they're all there. It's okay, it's fun, but they're just a bit stuffy. I remember when I was brought up, when I was first introduced to cricket in the 70s, the West Indians were the best team. Well, they had all these incredible fast bowlers like Michael Hawley and Malcolm Marshall and things. And when you went to the Oval, as it was called then, rather than the Kia, whatever it's called now, when you went to the Oval, it would be full of South London, originally West Indian fans who were there. And they used to have this fantastic kind of beat going with beer cans and drums and bells and whistles and it'd be going on all day, and it'd be just like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. And then they ban it. Not allowed to make music anymore, but they allow that ridiculous bugler in to do his stuff with the Barmy Army, whose songs are less rhythmical, shall we say. Barmy Army's a great institute, but it's a bit like that trumpeter who plays in England football matches. miss it. You can't miss it. It's called the 100. It's basically a variation on one-day cricket, except there's 100 balls instead of 120 or whatever it happens to be. And I think it's popular. It's definitely popular. It's like the IPL in India, where they all dress in pyjama clothes, and the Big Bash in Australia, or various others. And you get international crickets coming over, not all of them as they do in the IPL, because they pay a lot more money. But I think it's catching on, and it's really kind of, I can't think of a modern word, so forgive me if I use an old dad expression. It's very groovy. It's very groovy. The graphics are very groovy and colourful, and it takes a while for you to work out what's actually happening. So, and they've had to change the language. So if one of the commentators accidentally says an over, which is a set of 6 balls in normal cricket, you're not allowed to say that. It's not called an over anymore. It's called a set. And it's like, why are you bothering to change that? If you really are going to change it, then change it. But they've just, it's a bit change for change's sake, but I get how they're doing it, and they want to encourage young people to do it, and it's great. If it gets more people involved, that's fine. So Lords has decided, however, that they're going to ban alcohol. They're going to stop people bringing in alcohol after fans turn rowdy. Excuse me. Lords Cricket Ground has banned spectators from bringing alcohol to the grounds for the remaining matches in the new 100 competition because of fans becoming too rowdy. That's what cricket's about. Isn't that what the 100's about? Getting people involved and stuff. Maybe it's a non-alcoholic rowdiness that's needed. Visitors had been allowed to take, quote, small quantities of alcoholic drinks to consume while watching the 100 ball per side matches. Well, if you say you're allowed small quantities of alcoholic drinks, you can imagine, can't you? Come on, let's go down to Primark. Not Primark. Let's go down to what's the wholesalers, the massive one. Not Lidl, not Costco. Let's go down to Costco and buy 200 lagers. Small quantity, that'll do us. They were also allowed to buy up to 4 drinks per transaction at the bars. But this led to unruly scenes on Thursday when groups of men, isn't it always, chanted and sang during a match between the London Spirit and the Trent Rockets. Silly names. The club intervened by closing its bars half an hour earlier than planned. Bad idea. New rules were introduced for Spirit's return yesterday. Spirit, I think that's a pun. To play Southern Brave. What's that mean? Southern Brave. And will remain for Spirit's match against the Northern Superchargers. Like Rugby League, they're always changing their names. On Tuesday, and for the final on August the 21st. I'll tell you, the one when they used to have night matches or evening matches of T20, 20 overs per side, at the Oval between Middlesex and Surrey, as if they were big rivals in London. One thing I know, you could get a curry and a pint and a box for like 15 quid or something with all your pals, which was always good news. And it's the best place. The Oval's the best place for getting served a beer I've ever been to in my life, because you go there and there's the sort of front of the bar staff who are there to take your money and give you the beer, but there's at least 50% or more people behind them whose sole job is to just pour pints, just non-stop pour pints. So you get there and there's 200 pints in front of you, so you're going to get served pretty easily. You're not going to go there and have fancy drinks. You're having a lager or you're having a bitter, and that's it, and they're all ready for you. And you go in and you can buy 10 beers and it only takes you a minute, rather than that ridiculous thing where you're all trying to catch the barman's eye. If you were designing a drinks dispensing way, you wouldn't do it with a bar and people shouting, "Hey, barman." Right, let's talk about 11:50 is when the weightlifting starts, or at least the weightlifting that everyone has been talking about. We're going to ask whether or not you think that a transgender weightlifter should be allowed to take part in the Olympics. As I say, it's happening at 11:50, and we're going to look at it from a serious point of view as well. And I haven't heard from any reenactors yet, have we? People who dress up as medieval knights and joust. If there is any listening, I'd love to hear from you, because you're allowed to do it again now after lockdown.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is
sector not to create a new amber watch list. It would be designed to warn travellers of the possibility that countries could be moved to the red list at short notice. Booster COVID vaccines will reportedly begin to be administered in the UK from early next month. The Daily Telegraph says 32 million adults will be offered a third jab and that pharmacies will deliver the programme. 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of the murder of a 5-year-old boy who was pulled from a river in Wales. The man and woman in their 30s and a 13-year-old boy from Bridgend are being questioned. Now, Wales reporter Peter Gillibrand has more.
Early Saturday morning, a 5-year-old boy was reported missing from the Sarn area. A few hours later, his body was found in the Ogmore River near Pandy Park. 3 people have now been arrested on suspicion of murder, including a boy, and South Wales police say they're not looking for anyone else.
Union leaders are calling for privately employed health staff to receive the same pay rise as NHS workers. Unison says the likes of cleaners, porters and catering assistants who are employed by private contractors are at risk of getting no increase. Team GB's Laura Muir has comfortably qualified for the semi-finals of the 1500 metres at the Tokyo Olympics. The Scot finished second in Heat 1. Beth Dobbin reached the 200 metres semi-finals. In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen at 70.32 after closing down 46 points on Friday. The pound buys $1.39 and €1.17. And the weather, sunny spells for many, but showers breaking out over parts of England and Wales. Some will be heavy, dry and bright for much of Scotland, cloudier with some rain in Northern Ireland, and a high of 21 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
What's that? The website's totally down.
Dev's web hosting business urgently needs a senior systems engineer if he wants to keep his clients on Cloud9.
No, don't worry. We'll get it sorted.
Indeed can help him click with the right person with video interviews.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Schedule and conduct video interviews easily, all on Indeed. To start hiring, visit Indeed.com/try today.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Payne.
Very good morning. No medals yet for Team GB at the Olympics, but it's a busy day. There's loads more to come. The 3-day eventers, of course, are in gold medal position. Anyway, at 11:50, the women's 87 kilogram plus event starts, and that is going to feature one of the more controversial and talked about athletes at this Olympic Games. This is Laurel Hubbard, who's 43, making her Olympic debut. She is a trans competitor, the first one, I think, to take part in an official Olympic event, and she's due to compete in the women's weightlifting, as I say, at 10 to midday earlier today. To give you a little bit of background on her, she transitioned, she's from New Zealand, she transitioned in 2012 when she began hormone therapy. There is an estimate, or there is a sort of amount of testosterone that has to be in your bloodstream as part of the IOC's qualification program, and she qualifies as part of that. She, as I say, she transitioned in 2012, but she has caused quite a lot of controversy. Now, the first thing I should say is, from a competitor's point of view, she's competed as a man earlier and won gold medals, but she's not expected to get a medal in this women's event. The world record holder is a Chinese woman who's only 21 years old, and it's unlikely she'll get to the sort of weights that